What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. James still out on vacation, but I got my guy AB with me here tonight. AB is the host of the Open Gym podcast and a fellow Philly Sports Network contributor. AB, how we doing today?
Hey man, how you doing? How you doing, Sean? Man, I'm feeling good. Last night was amazing to see, just to see them build and build and build each game as each game go along. So I'm ready to go, man. I'm glad I'm here with you, and we get ready to talk about it. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Ready to jump in and digest. And
Yes.
before we get started, I am hyped to talk about BetUS, which is the official sponsor of the Pick Swap podcast. BetUS has been in the industry for 25 years and is the leading online sportsbook and casino in the market. So make sure to log on to betus.pa and use promo code PICKSWAP as a first-time depositor to cash in on some great opportunities. Sixers cashed in and covered the minus 10.5 spread last night by beating the Knicks 123 to 108. I mean, I feel like I'm ready to start planning the parade route. How are you feeling right now, AB?
I'm with you. I mean, y'all big time now too. Y'all got Bet US is sponsoring y'all as well. I might need to hit y'all up. I might need to play some bets because these Sixers definitely, man, definitely has a real good chance of making it to the title game for sure.
Yes, sir. And to jump right in, I think my biggest takeaway from last night would be Tyrese Maxey and just the play of him, the way he continues to elevate his game. Looking at last night, he played 36 minutes, ended with 25 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, shot 4 of 6 from three, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. The two 3-pointers, one the step back where he did the little Harden step back,
Yeah,
and then that
yeah.
spinning 3-pointer where he just kind of hit fading away late in the shot clock. Both just kind of took my breath away and were crazy moments there. So what were your thoughts on Maxey last night and just the overall relationship between him and Harden in these early games so far?
Yeah, it's been essentially instantaneously. As soon as James Harden got here, you've seen leaps and bounds of jumping as far as the progression in Maxi game. He already had progressed from
Mhm.
last year to this year. I seen a stat early this week, basically 9.1 points a game. He jumped from last year to this year, so he's already made that leap as far as next year to this year. But then seeing this game even go even more, you definitely the relationship is there. Harden knows his abilities, he knows what he's good at, and he puts him in situations where he can flourish. There's been many a times I've seen James Harden get the ball from the inbound pass and he sees Maxi streaking, defense isn't back. He knows that he's probably one of the fastest guy on this court. So let's push it up ahead to him and get him moving, get him in space, getting them while the defense is on the hill. So that relationship between them two is definitely flourishing early on. I know the word is right now, especially in national media, is that they're in their what is it, the honeymoon phase right now. But
Mhm.
I'll take it. If this is the honeymoon, I can't wait till they get married for a couple of years here, essentially like that. So definitely, I love the chemistry, the friendship, the camaraderie, everything about their relationship. Essentially, is working, and it looks like they can actually have an open communication with each other because it looks like anytime James Harden has anything to say, Maxie's already not prone to backing down from criticism, but he just takes it and runs with it essentially like that, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, definitely. And a cool story that came out of last night was Maxey struggled early in that game. He had 4 points at halftime. One of his just slower games as far as being effective in that. And James
Right.
Harden walked up to him at halftime and said, "So are you showing up to play tonight or what?"
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
see the response from Maxey, and very cool. There is kind of like a little brother vibe to
yeah,
Maxey in his relationship with Harden and Embiid, which I think is very cool and so cool that he's just stepping up to the plate and being ready. We see kind of the uptick in just pace and the way they're playing. I mean, the Sixers have 4 straight games with 120 points, including the past 3 with Harden. And not only is it the first time all season that the Sixers have done this, but they're the only team in the NBA to score 120 points in
yeah.
4 consecutive wins, which that's just a huge hats off moment. And of course that fourth win is in addition to the 3 games with Harden. That was
Right.
that Bucks victory before the
Yeah.
All-Star break, which is a victory I want to keep bringing up because I don't want that to get brushed over, lost in the swing of things, because that was a very impressive win for the
Very good
Sixers.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as Maxey in general, I mean, it's he's just ready. Like you just see, like there's nothing that phases him. There's no moment that phases him. And he's just kind of like a guy and so wise beyond his years. I mean, you see him post game talking about how hard he works, and Embiid called him the hardest worker he's ever been around. And Maxey said how he wants to make sure he keeps working hard, that he doesn't want to get to the end of his career and ask like what could have been. He wants to
Right.
maximize on his potential. And for a 21-year-old kid to be thinking like that already, just like the sky is the limit on how good this kid can be. And I mean, I personally had more concerns about Maxey fitting in than I did with the Embiid and Harden duo, but I was wrong in that he's absolutely ready. And we're seeing just the responsibility of having to be a passer and a guy running the offense taking off his shoulders. He's able to just relax and play basketball.
Yes.
So we're seeing the effects of that. And I mean, for the long term of his career, you can't ask for a better guy to learn behind than James Harden. So do you feel a similar way in that Harden's going to be very influential in Maxey moving forward?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you just looking like you say, he's 21 years old. So just think about who he looked to when he was growing up looking at basketball. You know, it is the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, the James Harden. This is his era of guys that he looked up to. So to have someone like that on his team and actually being able to learn from a person like that, and I believe Max even said it from the get go. Once he was traded, was just like he couldn't wait to get around him. He couldn't wait to talk with him and prick his brain about different things because that's just who Maxie is. I mean, he mentions it. You know, his slogan is "Get 1% better every day." You know,
Mhm.
that's what he does, and so I see. This isn't out of the ordinary as far as the trend of who Tyrese Maxey is. This is what he's shown since he's got here and since he's been here, essentially like that. So that's going to be a dynamic duo for the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the trio of Harden, Maxey, and Embiid have combined for 254 points in their first 3 games together.
Yeah,
That's 84.6 points per game.
yeah,
That's just a ridiculous
yeah.
split on the production between those three. Just so cool to watch it happening.
For all three of them, the first time playing with each other at that,
Yeah,
so it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Like think about the chemistry is just going to continue to build. So to touch on the guy who is kind of the head honcho of this big three and Joel Embiid, I mean, Embiid not a great Joel Embiid performance yesterday from his obviously very high standards that we hold for him, but he ended 35 minutes, 27 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Ratcheted up the defense in that second half for sure. I thought
yeah.
in the first half he was a little lackadaisical on that end, didn't have the effort, but that really just changed the pace. I mean, we saw in the second half that the Sixers just took over. They won that third quarter 38-19, which is kind of where the game busted open back in the Sixers' favor. And Embiid was a big part of that. So, how do you feel about Embiid's performance last night and his relationship with Harden as well?
Yeah, the same. You know, that was the
Hmm.
big thing. Could they work together? Which was something I could never understand why that was even a question when
Right.
he's played with centers like Dwight Howard, Clint Capella, people that couldn't do much. Now that literally only had one task they could do in the pick and roll situations, which is roll to the rim. But now you have someone that's literally able to do whatever. And then James Harden even said it himself, where it's like playing with someone that literally can do if not everything I can do, it makes it much easier to be able to be in a set like that. And then just in terms of last night, I feel like overall, just the team in general, they were just excited. It was James Harden first game at home at the Wells Fargo Center. You could tell, even James Harden said himself, just wanted to get all the butterflies and all the jitters out of the system before everything settled in, and you've seen it. That second half, once they got everything out the system, and Doc even said it, which was kind of interesting. We were losing, and we still were shooting 50% from the field. So it wasn't like we were terrible at offense. It's just we couldn't get any stops. And literally, they always tell you the talent rises to the top. And that second half, when they finally got all the jitters out, the butterflies out, and everything like that, they just say, "Hey, let's step in. Let's do what we got to do." And like you said, B took over. Obviously, you had Maxi in that late in that third that just exploded with a couple of threes. Niang hit a couple of threes. The team was who we thought they were, essentially like that. Once that second half came, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have never understood kind of the hesitancy on if the Harden and Embiid relationship will work. I mean, and for specifically talking about like Embiid as a roller, which to in fairness, it hasn't been something that Embiid has excelled in
Yeah.
yet in his career, and one of the weaker areas in general. But there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be able to do that for a guy that is as high IQ of a basketball player as Joel Embiid, for a concept that literally can be taught to like middle schoolers fairly easily. Like, there's no reason that that wasn't going to work. And you see the array of finishing ability, just scoring, and just decision making as a passer. I saw an interesting breakdown. I believe it was Kevin O'Connor that did it, that pointed out the Rockets team when back in a couple years ago, back
Mhm.
in when Harden was in his Houston days, how the way teams would kind of find a way to defeat that was basically make Clint Capella make decisions by
Yep.
collapsing on that.
Yep.
So when Harden would get doubled up there and hit Capella, Capella turns and then has two defenders on him. The
Yep.
reason that won't work against the Sixers is because I just believe in Embiid to be able to make those decisions, make those passes, because he's reached that point as a player, and that's game changing when you think about like you just can't defend both these guys. And there was a real classic example last night, right after halftime. It was the first basket the Sixers scored, where they ran a Embiid and Harden pick and roll. Harden stepped back to the three. Both defenders followed
Yeah.
Embiid. Harden
Yeah.
goes to pull it, and then both defenders come flying out, and they just ducks it into Embiid and
Yep.
one right there. And that's just kind of, in a nutshell, that is the relationship, because you just can't double both these guys, and it
Yes.
forces you to make a decision. And both these guys have to have a double, or they're getting their way every time. So I really do believe it's an unstoppable duo in that regard.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. I was going to mention that play right there was literally quintessential of what this team and what those two can do. You just can't double both, so somebody's going to get the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, very cool. Embiid's still leading the league in scoring. He's
Yeah,
still getting his. There's plenty of love to go around, which I also think people have a little bit of concern about that, which I just don't see that being a problem down the line. Now, a guy that we don't necessarily expect to be pouring in the buckets is Matisse Thybulle, but for the moment, he's been locking down that fifth starter spot, and so far has looked very good. We see
yeah,
the same influence with Harden, kind of what we see with Maxey of finding Thibault leaking out on the break, hitting him with those long passes and upping the tempo. And he's been impactful so far. So do you think Thibault will stick with that fifth starter role? And what do you think of his play so far in the Harden era?
I mean, I believe so, and this is why. James Harden, essentially, I don't. A lot of these players on the team, well, I would say all of them, never played with a guy like James Harden. Whereas we seen Thibault legit disappear at times. Yes, he's limited in his offensive prowess right now, but also is a product of the environment, of the structure of the offense, essentially, like that. And when you have a playmaker like James Harden who's literally able to see everyone and create for everyone, it makes it easier. Like you said, the last 3 games, Thibault has scored over 6 points every game. And it's like, when the last time you seen that in succession with Thibault
Yeah.
being a scorer like that? Yes, he's not out there just filling it up, being an option, but diving to the rim, going for oops, backdoor cuts, and then hitting the occasional corner three, which he hit another one last night, which was big actually during the time of the game when we actually needed some points. So definitely that relationship, it all comes down to how good James Harden is when it comes to his playmaking ability, being able to get everyone involved. I'm sorry, my baby just woke up. Let me grab her real fast.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even though there isn't like the efficiency necessarily in Matisse, like there is like a willingness to at least shoot it and shoot the shots that are there. And like, I mean, we see the 3 pointers, and we are here with AB's baby as well. We got a nice addition to the podcast here. So and the scoring with Harden, I mean, 10 points, 8 points, and 11 points in the 3 games with Harden, which is a pretty good total from Matisse. And a little cool stat I saw here, the Sixers are 7-0 this year when Thibault scores 10 or more points, which I think is a pretty good replication of his impact when things are going well. And
Yeah,
another even crazier stat I saw is this is the first time in Sixers history that 7 players made at least 2 threes last night.
I
So
seen
that
that.
was Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey hit 4, James Harden, Matisse Thybulle, Danny Green, and Georges Niang, all hitting 2 3-pointers. So very crazy. And that is a credit to Harden for the way he's spreading the ball around. I mean, it's just cool to see. Like there's just been such new life injected in this offense. And for Matisse specifically, like they're finding a way to utilize him as a cutter in
Yes.
a way that he hasn't been done throughout his whole career, really. And that is an area where he really excels, which is a credit to him for finding a way to be impactful with really lacking a lot of offensive abilities, but just using his athleticism and quickness, quick twitch, finding a way to make an impact. So I think that's been impactful in the offense. This starting five is working better as a unit than I expected. So
Yeah.
I think since the trade has happened, I think my personal belief was that Danny Green will eventually take over as the starter. But I think Matisse really is showing that he has a chance to hang in there.
And I mean, Doc showed that last night as well. I mean, you seen early from Danny, but we really didn't even see Danny all that much until I would say late in the third, maybe fourth quarter, essentially like that. It was just like it was going. And like you said, one of the skill sets Thibault has is his athleticism, which you
Mhm.
can utilize that on the offensive end of the floor. Like you said, rather it's slashing, rather it's cutting to the rim, rather it's even in pick and rolls at times. They set off ball screens and things for him to catch oops. So definitely. And if he can just, I would take 1 to 2 threes a game from him. I mean, that that'll be cherry on top for me when it comes to Thibault for sure. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, JJ Redick, who shout out to him for on the call last night for national
Yeah,
debut on the broadcast. And I thought he did a very good job.
yeah, it's pretty
But
good.
yeah, one of the things he talked about specifically was he was like, if Matisse can just be a league average 3-point shooter,
Yeah, yeah,
his value goes up like by an incredible amount. And he's absolutely right on that. That's something Sixers fans have been screaming for since Thibault has come here. It is kind of crazy. He's already 25 years old. And not that that's old by any means. He's
yeah.
still got plenty of years, but he's I guess farther along in the maturation than I guess but he is in like my mind, or I think in a lot of people's mind, because he spent all his 4 years at Washington and just
College,
a little
yeah,
different trajectory. But interesting there. I'm still seeing the positive signs from Thibault. I've liked what I've seen a lot so far. To transition to a guy that hasn't quite fit as clean, and maybe kind of the one part that it isn't flowing as cleanly with this new look Sixers offense is Tobias Harris. And I mean, we've seen him kind of be taking a back seat in this role. Last night, he played 29 minutes, ended with 14 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, 2 blocks, and was 2 of 3 from 3. So love to see that. What are your thoughts on Tobias fitting in this offense and just his role on the team in general?
yeah. It was definitely good to see him find some type of rhythm last night for sure. Early on, he hit a three, I believe, um, which was good to see. We're going to need a lot of that, especially when they have the starters in the game. And, the focal point of the offense will be the big three of James, Joel, and Tyrese. Uh, but what I did like from them, and Doc threw a little bit of a wrinkle in the offensive set during the second half when it was just James, Tyrese, and Tobias Harris. They had this 3-man action going on the right side of the floor where you had James and Tyrese setting picks. And Doc even mentioned it after the presser that they literally scored off of all 3 looks that come off of that set. And all of it was stemming from the offense running through Tobias Harris, which we're going to need when it comes to the postseason. That when those bench minutes are in there and we have a staggered lineup, when you have one or two of the starters in there, we're going to need Tobias to step up in that area and just keeping us in games or keeping leads if we have them and things of that nature. So that 3-man set that they were running was definitely, it was actually the one that Maxey hit the 3-pointer on. That was the
Mhm.
third time that they ran that set actually. So it was definitely good to see him finding a groove. I just need him to just be more confident in himself. He still is out there sulking when things go bad or arguing with refs for not getting calls and things. Just I need him to just focus on what his job is. Yes, you aren't quintessentially in the big three. What I'm
Mhm.
saying? We understand what's going on, but you can still be a part and you can still have an effect on this team and help us win. And that can be from when you're with the starters, you're going to get open shots. Have we seen over these last 3 games? People are open, players are open, and have a lot of room. Just knock them down. Just knock them down. And then when
Yeah.
you're in there with the bench, just make your imprint there. Make sure you hit your shots. If you want to go through your post ups, contested twos, if you want to go through your pick and roll, the things that's your time to put your impact on the team and keep us moving forward until the big guys come back in the game.
Yeah, please, no contested twos in my mind there. But yeah, to start with, I do want to give like a compliment to Tobias in the aspect that it's not easy to kind of swallow as much pride as he's
Yes,
being asked to. And
yes,
for a guy who's paid very highly, has been a
yes,
well-regarded professional in the NBA for long time, several years, many teams, is you won't find a guy to really talk badly about Tobias in any aspect. So there's not a lot of guys that would be capable of just kind of taking this backseat role and kind of being transitioned out of the main role of this offense. So I would like to give respect to him.
yeah,
That's not the easiest thing to do. Now, with that being said, there's absolutely things that he does need to change in his play style. Like there's shots that he simply cannot turn down. There's open threes that
yes.
he just you have to take those. And I think he will. He's trying. He's trying to fit into this offense, which isn't naturally kind of what he does. And I mean, the offense has almost overnight from the Harden trade gone into a very, very different change. When we think back to the whole first half of the season was very pretty ISO built around Embiid. There
Yeah.
was basically Toby was the set kind of number two option in the offense to now transition to being it much more fluid, much more motion and being Harden the guy pulling the strings, having a true point guard in this offense. Now that transitions to open shots, catch and shoot for Tobias, and you absolutely have to take it. And there was two clips last night that, looking at them side by side, absolutely frustrated me because there's one where and same kind of play where it was Harden coming off and just whipping off a pass to him, and one he went a bounce pass around the back, the other was a chest
Mhm.
pass. He caught both. The one Toby just clean catch and shoot, knocks it down, perfect. And then the second was a play where he had the open look, dribbled right in, and threw a pass to Maxey, and it ended with a Matisse three, the play. But it still was like you just have to shoot those. And I mean, there's going to be progress. Like it's obviously not going to be an overnight thing. And Toby's one not the most flexible out of as far as fitting in different sets, and it takes him a little time. Which I still believe that he will get there, and that in for this season specifically, he will find his role because there's absolutely a place in this team for him. And when you think about defensively, like that is the James Harden has more than covered up for what was lost in the making aspect of Ben Simmons, but the defensive holes are still kind of there. And Matisse has progressed to help cover up a lot of that. But like when you think about how the Sixers are rotating, if Toby's able to be like a guy and like a glove guy who can guard legitimate options for the team, that changes his usage, that ups the Sixers' chances. And that's really a way that, like, if we can get this guy to focus and be a defender, because he does have the tools, he's got good size, he's got decent athleticism, he's pretty fluid in how he moves. I would love for him to become more of a defensive stopper, and I think he's capable of that as well.
I've seen you mention that before, and I was a little bit like, wait a minute, defensive.
Yeah.
Where do we see that at? But as far as how you just broke it down, I totally agree. Just we're not looking for him to be elite or be this all defensive type of guy. We just wanting you to buy in, essentially,
Yeah.
to the role that you're initially transitioning to. We understand you paid 180. You got the big money. Essentially, you was a big three. Then you came to big two once Ben didn't want to play anymore, things of that nature. But you got to understand the circumstances of what the team is now and the dynamic of it. I mean, it was a simple stat, and that I seen, which was crazy, and I want to read that. This was the offense and numbers before and after Harden. Before Harden, we was averaging 107 points per game, 35% 3-point field goal percentage. Since Harden, it went up to 127 points per game and 43% 3-point field goal percentage. And as you know, we went 3-0 since he's been here. And obviously, we know a big part of that comes from James Harden adding his imprint as far as being able to score, Maxey taking off, and then other players hitting threes like a name. But he can be a part of that as well. If you say, like you said, if you're able to buy into just playing defense, and he's actually become, I must say, a decent rebounder as of late as well. He's been ending games 6, 7, 8, even 9 rebounds the last couple of games, which is good to see because obviously we was at the bottom of the leagues as one of the worst teams rebounding. But if you can just buy into that role of just defending, energy, rebounding, and just hitting the threes, don't pass them up. Like I'm not understanding why he's so nervous just to shoot or like you're Tobias Harris. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we know you're on a superstar, but on this team, this 76ers team, no one's going to get mad if Tobias Harris shoots his three-pointer and you're open. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, just shoot it. Be confident. Shoot. If you miss, it's fine. We understand you want to do other things, but like you said, a lot of understanding and buying in has to come in with this team and everyone understanding their role. And once that happens, I can see nothing but sky's the limit when it comes to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been flashes with Toby too. We saw
Right.
him guard up Darius Garland, did a very good job on that. Against the Timberwolves, he primarily guarded Karl Anthony Towns, which schematically freed Embiid up to just float around the basket and be
Yeah.
a true rim protector. Very cool there. They put Embiid primarily guarding Jared Vanderbilt as a aspect of they weren't afraid if that was going to be the guy that would shoot and allowed Embiid to float. And Toby being able to just guard Cat, which obviously he gives up some size, but
Yeah.
he still kind of did a good enough job and helped the team there. So there's aspects to get excited about. And now, so to look ahead at the Sixers team as a whole and kind of the league. So look at the standings. The Heat still hold first. The Bulls second.
Yep.
Sixers sit in third. They're 2 games
Yep.
out of first and a half game behind the Bulls. There's a very important stretch of games coming up for the Sixers where really we're going to see how this team stands up to some real competition and where they come out at the end of this. So play the Cavs tomorrow, then the Heat Saturday, the Bulls Monday, and the Nets Thursday. So, AB, what's your prediction on these 4 games and how you think they're going to look?
Can you run those names to me real fast one more time?
Yeah, sure. So, Sixers play the Cavs tomorrow, the
Yeah.
Heat Saturday, the Bulls Monday, and the Nets Thursday. So, 4 important games as far as standings.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, all those are uh, games that are definitely going to play a major part as far as how we match up against the upper echelon of teams in the league. I guess best case scenario is getting out of this next few games 3-1, at worst 2-2. But I wouldn't be surprised if we was this sweep it. Like I said, you got the Cavs there. They have talent, but still young. Obviously, the Nets later on might have Kyrie and KD on the floor, so that's going to be a tough one. Just contain them to it when it comes to their scoring. The Bulls, I know people like the Bulls. They're the flashy new toy this year. But we literally beat them every game we played them this
Yeah.
year, like without James Harden, and you're adding in that. And so I don't. I'm gonna say this. I know a lot of people have a lot of skepticism and worries when it comes to this. I'm one of the ones that more a little brasher because I look at the acquisition of James Harden more than what people believe it could be. When you talk about adding a top 75 player in the NBA onto your team, that's significant. And that's more significant than having Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, where we were still winning games. Like we still was, like you mentioned, the Bucks game. We won that before we even played got James Harden. Uh, that's a fact of us having a team, and then Joel Embiid being who he is, and I believe that's just the X factor in all this. So I could definitely see us going 4-0, but best case scenario, I see a 3-1 going down the stretch of games. But definitely, if I had to pick one team out of this stretch of games, I'm just more so curious about because it's an unknown. It's probably Brooklyn, only because they haven't played all year. We've seen them, we beat them, yes, with Kyrie or with KD. And at one time, I think it was James Harden and KD that we played them and beat them with. So
Yep.
that's probably the only dynamic that I'm looking forward to seeing and how that works out as far as how we match up against Brooklyn and us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brooklyn's especially interesting. I mean, when we look at how they're sitting on the air, 32 and 31 record, sitting at the 8th spot in the East. This is a team that realistically is pretty likely to end in the play-in tournament. And this, even so, is a team that nobody should be itching to play first round. So it definitely kind of changes the dynamic as far as where these standings end up, how the matchups are looking. I mean, these next 4 games as a whole, these are just all massive in the standing. I mean, the Bulls and the Heat are obviously above the Sixers, so a chance to move up there. I think the Nets are a game that is circled on a lot of people's calendars, and I mean, we're gonna have we'll talk a lot more about it at the end, but we're gonna have a fun little live night to watch that. So. The Cavs tomorrow is the first focus. I think that's the one I'm most confident in. Darius Garland's still a little beat up, not 100% sure if he's going to play or not yet. The Heat and Bulls, I agree. I think the Bulls are a fun team. I like them a lot, but the Vucevic and Embiid matchup, that's one that Embiid eats on every single time. I I also think the Heat matchup is going to be a game that Embiid specifically has circled because there has been all the chatter, the Bam and Jimmy Butler are a better duo and that kind of thing, which is complete nonsense. And
Yeah, I'm looking forward for that one for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I expect Embiid to bring his A game for that one as well. I mean, I went into this stretch prior on our podcast the earlier this week. I said we go 4-1, including last week. I think I'm sticking to that. I feel like there has to be one game in here that where they find a way to slip up and something happens. But these are all matchups that like I feel pretty good about when you think about like this. The Sixers have elevated their top level talent to the point where they can match up with any of these teams. So I think the impact of Harden has not been stated enough public or I guess nationally with that regard. And I definitely feel like there's a little disrespect on the Sixers still. And would you agree with that?
No, I totally agree. And just even specifically speaking about these matchups, in all those matchups, yes, you can say this, you can say that as far as pros and cons, but in all those matchups, none of those teams have Joel Embiid, and
Right.
that's what it boils down to. They had trouble with the team with him just with him by himself. So now that there's space involved, now that James Harden is involved, now that Maxi's taking another step on top of taking one just coming to this year, I agree with you. I totally agree. The respect that we don't get, rather I should say, from national media is mind-boggling to me. When literally the last 2 years, the simple fact KD and Kyrie got James Harden, it was like, oh, without a doubt, they
Yeah.
are going to the championship. No one's going to stop them. But then now that he's on the Sixers with another great player that's probably greater than the other two that he played with, other than KD, who he could probably compare it with. But they don't want that, and then they
Yeah.
don't like that at all. So definitely, that's the key for me in all this, and I've always said it since the beginning, since we had them, that if the Sixers win a championship, it's going to be on the shoulders of Joel Embiid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with everything you said, but I don't even hate it that it's kind of getting brushed over. I don't mind the Sixers embracing the
Oh
underdog.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
villain role even. And we already see like the comments nitpicking about like the free throws and the style of play and all this. And you know what? Let it come. Let everybody have it cuz
Listen, I'm keeping all my receipts. I'm going to be relentless if we was to win. They're going to
yeah.
block me, everything else they need to do. I'm going to be relentless because I remember everything that was said and the disrespect that was spilled about this team. So I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big stretch coming up. We will check in with you guys after this game. AB, let's talk a little bit about the live event we got going on and let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yeah, so you want me to start with the live event or just do my spiel?
Sure, we'll start with the live event. So
Live
yeah,
event?
for the Nets game on Thursday, March 10th, this will
Yes.
be. And then yeah, you can dive in and
You
talk
want me
about
to
it.
go? All right, cool. So yeah, March 10th, Sixers versus Nets. I'm sorry. We're at PSN, PhillySportsNetwork.com, in conjunction with Open Gym Podcast, which is my podcast as well. If you're in the Philadelphia, Jersey, Delaware area, come on out to Franklin's Pub, East Falls, 3521 Bowen Street. We're going to have a pregame live stream going on. We're going to have giveaways, obviously drink specials, things of that nature. We just have a good time. It's just a big party. James Harden against his old team. You got Seth Curry, Andre Drummond coming back to the center and everything like that. So it's going to be a good time. Obviously, flyers and things will be up. Make sure you follow us on our socials. You can follow me. You can follow me on Instagram at only the number one AB __ on Twitter, only the number one _ AB. Then also you can follow me on, follow my podcast as well, which is Open Gym one word podcast on YouTube and on Instagram. So yeah, it should be a good night. Sean will be there, other fellow contributors to the PhillySportsNetwork.com family will be there. Might have some special guests in there. I'm working on things for that as well. Games, food, the whole nine. So we're gonna have a good time, man, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking forward to that too. We'll have more coming out as far as advertising and stuff planned. So AB, thank you for joining me today. I
Sure.
appreciate the special guest you brought on as well. So
Yes. Say hi.
and we will check in with all you guys next time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Don't forget George Nang, man. That's my guy, man. Can't leave a show without mentioning that guy. He's been
Love
a
it.
great addition to this team. Thank you,
Love it.
Sean.
Love the shout out.
Appreciate it.